steadily it rises. Public preference for Lincoln Continental as the symbol for today's luxury motoring.
Hey, it's ODB, the Lincoln Addict, and I want to hit you guys with a video of a car that is for sale right now on eBay. So let's jump right into it. Thanks for everyone that comes back to the channel. Hit the subscribe if you can. That way you'll see the new videos that come out in your feed, and then also consider tapping the bell notification. So this car that you see here was built by Brian in South Florida. He goes by Salux. You might be able to find him, I know, on Instagram. He's probably on Facebook as well. This car, if I recall correctly, was built back in like 2015 era. So we're talking 7-8 years ago. Now, this car that you see in the photo that Brian had posted back then, I believe he built two at the same time. So there's a possibility that this is the sister car, or the one that you're seeing right here is the one that's for sale. So we'll get into that. But I saw this car back in 2015, in December of 2015, at Blair Farmer's shop in Clearwater. So again, they are a bit tough to tell apart. Now, these are the photos that I took of the car. Blair was doing some mechanical things on it, I believe, back in that time, again, December 2015. And I think Brian built two white cars at the same time. This is clearly a 64. We can tell by the grille. We can tell, obviously, by the rear setup here. Keep in mind, 65 does not have this panel here on the deck lid, and the bumper inserts are different on 65, as well as the taillight cages. I recently did a video talking about the differences in the 61 through 4 versus the 65 taillight. So again, this is a 64. It has the Detroit Steel Wheel Company wheels, often referred to as, quote, Mobsteel wheels. The reason for that is Mobsteel broke off and created their second kind of business, if you will, which is called Detroit Steel Wheel Co. Again, you'll hear these also often referred to as Mobsteel wheels. These were the few photos that I took when I was out at Blair's. Again, this is some time ago. And 64 arguably is the most desirable year. You'll have folks say 65 is their favorite. You'll have folks also say 1, 2s, and 3s. Certainly every year has its ups and downs, but 64 is very sought after. Now, what I'd like to do is jump over here to eBay. So the guy that's selling this car, I have posted it, and I don't often post cars for sale lately. Like I told you guys, I'm very selective on what I post, and I'm very selective on anything that I would endorse. Now, what I want to be very clear is I'm not necessarily endorsing this car. What I would say is that everything that applies what I've said in the past. I always suggest that you or someone you trust, or someone like in the car industry, put eyes on said car that you're looking to purchase. So I want to go through these quick photos and hit upon the selling price and things like that. Again, 64 in white. This looks very presentable here. It's a great color combination because you've got the Diamondback tire here, and then you've got the black Detroit Steel Wheel Co. wheel against that white paint. It looks really, really good. Here's a photo down in South Florida, again, Miami area, with the car laid out. Here's another one in a parking garage. You can see how low the car is, and you can see here again, looks very, very presentable. This is, of course, with the top up. The cool thing that a lot of people, we don't talk enough about, is when these cars, when the top is up, remember, they do not have the pillar here. It's a convertible. Obviously, you couldn't have the pillar, but it gives it that awesome kind of flow of like a hardtop car. So kind of the little difference between the sedans and a hardtop, as I've said in the past, is a sedan has that pillar, so to speak. A hardtop does not. Of course, this is a soft top convertible, so it also does not have the pillar, so it gives it that good look. And typically, again, we don't talk enough about it because normally in a convertible, the top is down. You're not necessarily worried about that. What you can see here, again, another good side shot. Oftentimes, I've always talked about looking in here in the dog leg area to kind of see if there was a lot of work that was done or if there was any rust here. We can't really tell much there. Now, we'll get into this, but The seller is also reinforcing that there's no rust under this car, so that's a good thing. And you can see here at the time it had a Texas plate, but the car is located in, my understanding has always been located in Florida. Here you can see it's aired up. The cool thing about these cars, I know they often get a lot of hate from like a purist, so to speak, or someone that goes, hey, why do you make a lowrider out of a Lincoln? You can see even with my 64 and with this 64, when the car is aired up, you almost can't tell that it's airbagged. I mean, this thing gets pretty good lift in the back. This thing was pretty much sitting on the ground here, the rocker panel. And at this point, like, you could cruise it to a show and not air it out, and people wouldn't even realize it was airbagged. Of course, if you like low cars like I do and others, you would air it out because that's just what we do. You can see here, something to point out that you're going to see in a great description is the front and rear bumpers have been re-chromed. My assumption also is, typically when someone says they've re-chromed a bumper, that typically means the entire bumper, including the bumper ends. So I think it's safe to say that the front and rear bumper, as well as the bumper ends, and on the rear, the bumperettes, kind of those inside bumper deals, that they have also been redone. We can see a very presentable interior here in terms of the floor mats, of course, aftermarket, but they look really good. They tie into the interior color. Everything that we're seeing here in this photo looks good. We can see it has the automatic headlight dimmer, and I've reinforced that in the past. That's what that little guy is there. We can clearly see that everything underneath here was, painted nicely. I have said in the past, this is not necessarily a bad thing at all. I like a nice flat or, glossy, it doesn't really matter, but typically a flat black, kind of an undercoating, so to speak. It could hide things on, if someone's trying to do a lipstick job, as I've said. But what we can see here is this looks real good underneath here. There is a little dent we can see in the gas tank. That's not going to necessarily hurt anything. These gas tanks can be they are remaking these again. My friend Tom, in fact, actually just put one in his 65, which are the same tank as 64. And I think they run about $600 now with the sending unit. So obviously, if you were worried about that, you could change that out. Okay, to me, very presentable interior. We can see right here, we see the rear seat belt. It's hard to tell if there's a front seat belt right in here. But here's the big thing that sticks out. These are actually... I don't want to say 65 seats. That's kind of what my mind went to. These are the 65 seat patterns. So it's possible that, that the seats were just redone into a 65 pattern, which people like. This kind of tuxedo, you often hear it referred to as, you basically got the white on each of the doors here. You've got the inside white and all of the side, and then you have the black on the inside. So to me, obviously, this has been redone at some point. I think it looks really good. It's very presentable. It's going to help move this car. Someone's going to like it, in like a white and a black situation. The other thing is you could always paint this car black if you wanted to, and the white would still kind of pop. Or you could just redo all the interior if you really wanted to. I like to kind of look in here and kind of see how does everything look. And obviously, when this car was resprayed, they did a good job, it appears, painting everything. We can also see it does have a nice top. So again, these tops can be anywhere from about $1,000 plus a few little accessories that you kind of need that go around here. And then to install it, I mean, you could easily have anywhere from, I'd say, $2,000 to $5,000, depending on where you live, with the material, the wiring that runs through it, which is a couple $100, having, paying the labor, and then some of those little accessories that go along with the install. But the top looks really, really good. Here we can see a little bit of the deck lid and what we call the flapper. This flapper, of course, is covering the area. This kind of retracts in, and this flapper is covering where, when the top is up, that's where the convertible, is basically, it comes out of right here, right? And then it goes up over, and covers the car. So another side shot looks good. You can see... I like, even though in my 64 I've changed out some of the bulbs, I kind of like that authentic incandescent type bulb, the original bulbs, if you will. It is nice. Like in my 65, I also have these swapped out to LEDs, but in my 65, I have the factory bulbs here, like kind of like this, and it kind of gives it that old school feel, certainly. Again, very presentable. You can see there's it's been vacuumed. It looks good. I mean, this is the way a car should be presented, I think, in photos. We can see the AccuAir controller here. I've done videos in the past on air suspension, but the cool thing about AccuAir is you can hit 1, 2, or 3 if you've got the E level, which I believe he does, or you can have it set when you start the car, it automatically goes to your drive height, your preset. So, you can start the car, it airs up, and it's where it's supposed to be. So it's pretty cool. We can see in the engine bay here, we do have a battery disconnect, which is good on these cars. So this is kind of one that you can buy and you twist that knob. We can see it has the 3-port fuel pump, which is key. It does have AC. These little covers here are from Detroit they're from Detroit Deviant. And they help to kind of, you can see here, these get super hot, but this helps to kind of cover up the manifolds. It does have the single reservoir, and these braces are also Detroit Deviant. You can go to his website. He sells a bunch of cool stuff for Lincolns and other cars. Pretty presentable overall. I mean, this is as clean as, you'll see these engines. It's worth noting there's a piece here on the factory, which most of us don't put it back on, and it kind of comes and it rests over here. Of course, you can't have it with these on here. This is totally fine. You've got your air cleaner in here. Not having that piece on there is something you'll see at a lot of shows, and that it's not going to impact anything at all. Someone has put a chrome coil on it. It's also worth noting that this coil, where it is mounted, it's typically mounted underneath this reservoir tank, right? And it's a pain in the rear when it's mounted there. So you will see guys like what they've done here. They've come in here and they've mounted it up in this way. I've done the same thing with my 64. You get a 66 or 67 mount. This, I can't really tell what they've done, if they've just made a custom mount. But regardless, you'll be thankful if you ever have to change the coil, being that it's moved and relocated, if you will, where it's at. It is a pain to change it, to even get the little nut off down there. What we can see down here underneath the car, pretty clean, to be honest, in terms of what we're seeing with the trans here. You can see this is all in your normal little stuff. I mean, it's hard to tell. I wouldn't say that this is necessarily rust at all. If is going to be surface rust. It's not going to be anything that's going to be too bearing. Again, I can't see all of this, but if you were serious about buying this car, I would certainly have someone take a look at it. Again, the seller has been very upfront that there's really no rust under the car, and that's what I can kind of tell. I mean, it looks good. Underneath the doors, it's hard to tell what this is. I mean, is this, has this been covered up or under the doors bad before? I would, advise, again, just, have someone look at it. If you know someone that's in paint and body, they could look and see and do some of their checks and see, what is it? Did someone just paint over what was there and not really kind of clean it up? But again, not the end of the world. This is, of course, these are the Detroit Deviant sill plate covers here. There's a little bit of stuff going on in here. And again, it's hard to tell if this is just the paint cracking. Is it, was there any body filler used here? The good thing that I would say is that the seller is being very upfront with what he is showing here. This is, of course, where the deck lid lays down. You'll typically see in here, I've mentioned before, where there'll be leaves and water and stuff over the course of time. This, I wouldn't say to freak out over. Again, if you got this car and you wanted to do like a ground up restoration on it and have it taken to bare metal and stuff, you certainly could. It's just hard to tell like what this is. Is this anything that's horrible, or is it just something that just needs to be remedied by, a normal paint and body guy? Same thing on the other side there. You can see the paint is cracking. Now, again, I would caution you to have someone look at it, but keep this in mind. My 64, I have patina, kind of a blue original style paint on it, and it looks horrible. You'd look at it and go, wow, this thing needs a paint job. And on my car, I'm keeping it original, at least for the foreseeable future. So again, it can be deceiving. Someone could see the paint cracking and go, oh, wow, this is bad. It doesn't always mean that it's horrible. Now, I'm going to hit escape and jump back over here. You may have saw this a few minutes ago, but he is asking 119 grand. So you start to kind of go, wow, is it worth 119 grand? Well, let's look at this description. Okay, I'm not going to read every word, but I'll tell you one of the best things about this is the description. Okay, I have said this time and time again, and maybe the guy watches the channel. If he does, thumbs up. But there's a ton of information here. He kind of talks about how many were built. He talks about when Celux purchased the car back in 2016. He did some work to it. I'm friends with the owner of Celux, and this is the second car his business ever built. So again, I think it was the two white 64s that he built. The car had 56,000 miles on it. He went through this kind of restoration, so on and so forth. Now, here's the other key thing. He has 576 photos, 45 videos, and 7.5 years of ownership. He also states in here that he has all of the receipts. Again, another great thing. I just went through my file, he says, and all the work that I've done over the 7.5 years, he put 40 grand in it almost, right? He says up here that Celux had about 70 grand in it. So you start to go 70 plus 40, you're already over 110 grand, right? Now, again, I'm not going to read through every piece of this information, but it's nicely bullet pointed out. You've got AccuAir management system, the Mobsteel front and rear air ride kit, so it's not a homemade kit. He mentions it has a small leak in one of the airlines. Again, that's kind of normal for air suspension. Again, Diamondback Classic, so they are 20s. He talks about in 2016, $9K spent to overhaul the top with relays, motors, hydraulics, hoses, all that stuff. All of the windows and the auto drops, as well as the smaller vent windows, they all work as they should, which is fantastic, which he kind of bullet points here. The original MEL 430 and the trans shifts smoothly. He does mention the AC is there. I do think he said it needs a little bit of work from an AC perspective. HID headlights, all of the dash lights he talks about working. He says front and rear bumpers re-chromed in 2018, which is good. All moldings, trimmed, emblems, Continental emblems, so on and so forth are in great shape. All are original, of course. They don't remake a lot of that stuff. And you can see some of the other things that he has here. The original 64 dashing car's in perfect condition. It looked like it was in good condition. Bluetooth radio installed with speakers installed where the factory speakers would go in the dash. So that's good. Subwoofer and amp in the trunk. Nothing was cut as far as what he says here. Repairs made since he owned it. So reseal of the trans, front alignment, install new glove box. Again, a lot of detail, and this is awesome that someone took the time, right? This is going to help drive potentially the sale of this car. His mechanic installed the AC compressor valves in Freon 134. He isn't an AC specialist, but does all the work on his classic cars. AC needs a specialist to handle the vacuum advance on the dash that turns the air on, per the mechanic. Blair Farmer in Clearwater does this stuff all the time, so you could easily have it. You could schedule with Blair to have him redo all the vacuum lines under the dash. He can kind of do that. Not kind of. He does that, and he's done it for 40 years, so that kind of stuff can get done. New battery installed October 2018 to end of November 2019. Celux did 5 weeks worth of work on the car, both mechanical and cosmetic, fixing minor rust, etc. Too much to list, but have all the receipts and photos. So what I would say is I have posted this car on my social media. The reason being is I think the person is being very fair and honest with what he is selling. This car is not for everyone. I totally get it. I know some of you, you'll look at this, and the way I look at it as well is I wish there was more photos here, but the seller has been very clear that he'll send you a link to all of the other photos. And keep in mind that sometimes is the fact that with eBay, there's third-party software and things like that when you get into sharing more than 20, 30, 40 photos, right? Bring a Trailer does a great job with allowing you to post 100 to 200 photos. But here, again, the seller is doing a great job in presenting, hey, this is what you get. These are some of the areas, of concern, but at the same time, if you were to put, let's say we've seen on Bring a Trailer 30 to 60 grand for a nice 64, right? And you start adding up the parts, the wheels, the tires, some of the stereo stuff, resealing the transmission, going through the AC. You start doing all that, you're easily going to bust through 100 grand, right? If you really break it down and start ordering parts and paying for the labor. This car, I think you could get, if someone's going to get it anywhere, my guesstimate is 100 to 119K. And then they're going to enjoy the car. And if there's some things, if they're OCD and they want to get the AC working, if they want to, take it to the next level, crazier stereo, engine swap, whatever they want to do, obviously they can do that if they've got the money. But what I would tell you on this car is if you're in the market and you're looking for a semi-custom Lincoln, great, desirable year, one that's, it's got some meat on the bone in terms of, if you want to do more things to it, certainly this is a car potentially for you, but that's up to you. And I would always say, again, have someone look at the car, fly down there, drive it, make sure that, the seller is presenting it the way he or she is. And I think that's the key thing. So in closing, we'll jump back over here and basically say, hey, here's the car or the sister car of it. This was at the Don Cesar, I believe, over in St. Pete. Looks like it. Maybe not. But here are some of the photos, again, that I took of this or the sister car, as I mentioned. And there you have it. So appreciate all the support. If you get a chance, check out Lincoln Addict podcast via most podcast channels. You can just Google Lincoln Addict or go to lincolnaddict.com for ways to listen. I certainly appreciate the support. Stay on the rise. And good luck to anybody that ends up picking up this car. I do believe it's pretty much on all the sites for sale except for Bring a Trailer. So I think eBay, Facebook Marketplace, maybe Craigslist. It's pretty much out there. And the guy did tell me that he's just looking to move on from it. He's had fun with it 7-8 years-ish. And he's ready for a new project. So there you have it, guys. Take care. Appreciate the support. Peace.